Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Okay, since we have limited time, let me start. Let me upload the presentation for today. And this. Okay. I hope everybody can see the presentation. So as you know, today I'm going to speak about how to launch a tech startup and raise financing. I will try to illustrate different aspects of this based on my personal experience. And yeah, first of all, I asked you a question, to write in chat what stage you're at, is because I wanted to say for whom is this presentation. So this presentation is intended for early founders who are basically just starting their entrepreneurial journey, and will be most helpful for those who are taking their first steps rather than those who have already launched multiple startups or are beyond round A or round B in financing. So yeah, a little bit about myself. So I am the co-founder and operating and financial officer at YaizY, which is an ed tech startup that operates on the US market. And what we do is we help K-12 institutions prepare students for careers. So we help bridge the career readiness gaps that emerge at today's education system. Before launching YaizY, I also worked as a management consultant for 4 years in digital department, and I was focusing on projects that were essentially using big data of consumer-facing companies in order to personalize offering for the clients. So this is how I'm going to structure my talk. First, I will start with scoping the idea and pitching it to yourself and to external investors and partners. I will talk about launching an MVP and how I see founders should approach it. And finally, I will speak to raising funds and the approach to both raising funds and spending them when it comes to external funding. So first, just an icebreaker, basically when I was still in strategic consulting and was thinking about launching my startup, basically I talked to, I went to different conferences, talked to different founders, and it all seemed very fancy and easy to, be building some innovative products, reaching out to millions of customers and making the world a better place. But eventually, startup journey is, as a matter of fact, very challenging. And you should be prepared for a challenging but yet very fascinating and interesting journey. And yeah, so let's start directly. So scoping, idea, and pitching. And let me start with an example of my own company, of YaizY, how we first started off and the mistakes that we made in the beginning. So as we started, like the idea was that we basically wanted to transform the way students study in general. So as opposed to the current school system that is in place all over the world, we wanted to bring in something new, skill-based, like skill-centric and career-centric education. And we wanted to bring this solution globally. So we wanted to build a global product that has like centralized product development, but then the distribution would be worldwide. And we started at the UK market. In few months after launching the UK, we launched in Singapore. Then we launched in the US, and that's market-wise. Second, product-wise, also like since we were teaching careers, we thought that it would be impossible to grow if we didn't have a big amount of courses. So we started the production of over 20 courses at once in the beginning, because we thought the more courses we have to offer to clients, the better they will buy, which is kind of obvious and logical, but at the same time, we were not thinking about whether it was possible to grow with like one course or not. So eventually, like to cut the story short, in the end, we are right now focused on one specific market, which is US market. We are focused on one specific acquisition journey, which is direct sales to institutions, so B2B or B2G, if you will, selling directly to public, charter, and private schools. And we started off with one specific course in programming, and only later on, after a year and a half, couple of years, we introduced more courses to expand our offering. So what I want to stress here is that you can't overestimate how important it is to have a very focused approach when you're scoping the idea. So in terms of the market, the customers, the functionality of your product, you should be very focused. You should build a working model with a very specific product on a very specific market before you start scaling that. Because otherwise, you will be scaling mistakes, and you will be making more mistakes as you launch. How to do that? Really, it helps to ask yourself questions when you're scoping related to the product and solution, the problem and solution that you're bringing, the market and clients, business strategy. So for example, like, what is the specific problem or the pain point of a customer that you are addressing? How exactly you're solving it? Like, what is your specific solution? What is unique about it? And yeah, what market, what specific customers you are addressing. So it's very important to be very, very narrow in defining your initial scope. Then an instrument that helps you to scope properly is a pitch. So a pitch is not just a presentation for investors to get funding, but it also helps you to reflect on your idea, to explain, first of all, to yourself in a very crisp manner what is your solution, what is unique about it, how you're gonna enter the market, what is your go-to-market strategy, how your team is well positioned, well assembled to tackle the problems that you're going to solve, and so on. Second, of course, it's very handy for fundraising. And finally, it's like the pitch is your continuous instrument that keeps evolving as you get feedback from the market, from the partners, and as you gain more understanding or more inputs, different inputs on the market and product and other conditions. So let me quickly go through the structure of pitch when I think about it. When I approach a pitch, like for me, it should be a very concise, small document, around 8 to 10, 11 slides. And it involves the following essential items that you can see here. So first, like very obvious, an opening title page, but what I wanted to say here is that it's great to set the stage with your opening slide. And for example, we find it cool to have on a title slide your motto or like your vision or mission statement. For example, for YaizY, it's the most exciting way to prepare kids for a great future. So it helps you to set the stage for whoever you're pitching to and excite them about the presentation you're going to make. Second, it's like the first slide is about, first content slide is about problem definition. And here you should be very precise in defining what exact 2 or 3 problems you're solving. And these problems should be connected to the current state of the market. Okay, so you should take into account not just the general needs or problems that are out there, but you should also address how the current players or existing solutions are not solving it efficiently. The next, you have your solution. And when you speak about solution, it should match exactly the problems that you stated on a previous slide. So there shouldn't be solution points that are not addressing any of the problems that you stated. And there shouldn't be any of the problems that you stated just hanging there without being addressed in the solution part. Next, you go to a product. So you describe how your product functions to solve to realize the solution that you stated previously, and what is unique about your product. Market size, it's usually optional. I, for example, I don't include market size because the investors or partners that I talk to are usually well aware of the vast education market and the segment that we're playing in. But if you think that it makes sense to explain the size of the market to the investors, that it should be, that it can be not straightforward, then do include this slide as well. Point 7, business model. Here, I like to think about it like as a basically a scheme, a picture, a chart of how you are going to earn money to monetize your business. Who are your customers that are going to pay you? Who are the providers that you are going to pay? And what is your acquisition channels and how we acquire clients? Traction, if you have it, it's great to include and to show what you have already achieved. If you have revenue or you have product roadmap or anything tangible that you can show to investors. 9 is financials. This one doesn't mean that you should include the whole P&L on the slide. Keep it to 3-4 key metrics. Usually it's revenue, profit, some operational metric of like number of users or something. And it could be something specific to a specific metric to your industry. The T, quite obvious. And in the end, you usually want to finish with what are you asking of your counterpart? Like why you have been pitching, what are you offering? And as opposed to expecting that an investor would offer or a partner would offer something on their own. Key do's and don'ts, as I said, like the presentation should be very simple. You shouldn't overload it with words or too much information. It should usually take no more than 7 to 10 minutes to go through the whole pitch. And it's just the first stage of interaction with whoever you're going to interact, because then it will be Q&A, for which second deuce, like you should prepare well in advance. You should have ideally a data room of different materials that could be asked that you can share. For example, for investors, apart from pitch, it's product materials like product roadmap, product demo, financial metrics, such as everybody asks for cap table, financial model, unit economics. You should have that all prepared in advance so that in a follow-up, you can send that straight away. And don't forget to follow up with your counterparts, summarize whatever you've talked about, and send additional information if it was asked. Even if an investor, for example, decides not to invest, not to continue, but they seem interested in what you're doing, still do the follow-up and keep in touch. Second, probably one of the most important parts for any tech startup is building an MVP. First, I want to just quickly mention like when and why you need an MVP. Okay, of course, there are some sectors where you could do without an MVP. It could be like established industries with established way of doing things. And if you're not going there to disrupt this industry, but playing by the rules, and the rules have been set quite some time ago, then you probably don't need an MVP. You can launch straight away. But in most of tech businesses, when you're building something innovative, you would need an MVP. You would need an MVP because it's very hard straight away, like even if you're an experienced professional in the field, it's very hard to build an innovative product without like to from the beginning to imagine the to imagine the target state of a product and build it straight away. So MVP helps you to test your assumptions, to collect feedback, and to build a better product. Yeah, so actually before that, let me start with an example of my own company, like how we approached building our first product. So our product essentially consists of two parts. It's the curriculum part, the educational curriculum, our courses that we develop internally. And the second part is the tech. And our tech involves like live lesson, like web conferencing platform. It involves an LMS, and it involves student dashboard and our regular website. So in the beginning, since we were like tech-focused company, and we had a bright tech founder. And we, of course, wanted to build a proper tech. So we wanted to have a proper product from the beginning. And there was two options. So one that was pushed by the tech founder very eloquently was that we need to build our own proprietary platform, our own code from scratch. And sorry, because the existing solutions on the market, like using Zoom or Canvas for LMS, were not ideal. They were not exciting to students. They were not ideal for educational environment. And also they were not customizable to our needs. They were not really, there were not many like gamified elements there to keep the fun in learning. And the second option was to go with no code approach. So to build a working product from existing solutions by integrating existing solutions, and to start selling, to get feedback from the market, to then eventually incorporate it in a proprietary platform. So we went with the first option. We started creating our own proprietary platform, our own proprietary code. And the first estimate was that it would take 3 months for our tech founder, CTO, to develop it. So eventually, when 3 months passed, we were nowhere close to having a working product, because as we were diving deeper into developing the functions of the platform, we were learning more and more. We're, extending the scope of the project, and the scope kept increasing, and some of the tasks turned out to be harder than we thought they would be. So instead of 3 months, it extended to 6, then 12, and then eventually a year and a half before we launched a working proprietary solution. So what we did after 3 months, when we were not close to launching a working product, we went with the no-code solution. In less than 2 weeks, we assembled a working integration of Canvas and Zoom. And in parallel, we continued working on the proprietary platform. And we launched the no-code product to the market, started gathering feedback and incorporating it in our proprietary platform. And now when I think of it, since we as founders, we did get some advice on that, but we didn't have any experience. But now, for me, it seems very clear, and I would advise everyone strongly against developing proprietary code MVP from scratch from the very beginning. I would strongly advise to go with no code approach, and to later on start developing the proprietary tech when you're ready, when you have the right resources, and when you understand exactly from the feedback of the market what the product should like. So the key so what from that is the guiding principles to the left here when developing an MVP should be speed. Like, you should be able to launch a working solution within few weeks or few months, like 2-3 months tops. Why is that? Because this stage, when you are developing an MVP, it's a pre-revenue stage. So you want to minimize the pre-revenue stage as much as possible and to start earning money and to start interacting with clients as soon as possible. Second, for the same reason, you should keep it low cost. And ideally, when you think of building or like putting together a founding team, yeah, but that your founding team should have people that are able to build an MVP by themselves. And finally, as I said, no code approach is very helpful to launch MVP quickly on the market and to start gathering feedback. Because the goal of an MVP is to launch as soon as possible and to start gathering feedback. Can't overemphasize that. When I think of the process of developing an MVP, here's the process that I would follow. Like first, you start with a pre-product stage where you basically conduct preliminary research. You do focus groups or interviews, qualitative interviews to define what features would be most appropriate, most critical for the MVP. Second, very quickly, in days or weeks, you should be able to assemble a clickable prototype that, again, you can show to the audience and collect feedback on that. And finally, after you've done the first two, you are developing an actually working product. And MCVP here stands for minimal commercially viable product, because when I think of an MVP, I usually think about an MCVP, because I want a product that is viable and I want a product that you can actually sell and thus clients money for. Otherwise, it's hard to collect like proper feedback and to analyze your product properly if you are giving it out for free or you're not like selling it to like general audience. Key do's and don'ts, as I said. So try to focus on key features, try to launch as soon as possible and test as early as possible your product. Don't overspend, overbuild, don't incorporate too many functions into the first product. Never outsource the core development. So if you're thinking of building a product, so you're not following no-code approach, you're building your proprietary platform, do it in-house. If you're a tech company, that's your key asset. So build it in-house. And don't rush to scale. So launch an MVP, collect feedback, implement feedback, do another iteration, and only start scaling when you see you are ready, the product is performing well, all the metrics are performing well, then you can start to scale. Let's move to the final topic, which is raising funding. Apparently a very important one for tech startups, and also given the current conditions in the market. So once again, let me start with a personal example. So to illustrate how to think of how to spend funds and how to think of the runway that the funds should give you. So basically, when we started in the first year and a half, we were able to collect around 3 million in funding, and that was done very easily in less than 3 months. 2 rounds, both in less than 3 months, were closed. Like from initial conversation to closing a round, it took less than 3 months. We started early in 2020, and it was a booming time when VC investments, especially in ed tech, were at all-time highs. They were growing every year at a very high rate, and we got there. And basically, this, like when there is a growing market, it forgives a lot of mistakes. But then at the end of 2021, when we saw the VC market contracting and we're expecting a downturn after that, we had to reevaluate how we think about funding and spending funds. Because by the end of 2021, we were growing at a good rate, and that was the key metric that investors were monitoring. Basically client satisfaction and the growth rate. But we also had a very unprofitable and unsustainable growth without the vast funding that we were raising from investors. And in 2021, the first realization came to us that the money is not endless. Even if you grow at a good rate, the market can just stop providing funds to you. So we started thinking about optimizing our runway. So instead of having a runway of 6 months, we started optimizing for 12 months plus with the remaining funds that we had at the end of 2021. And basically what we did back then, and we were still a B2C company, so selling directly to parents, we stopped all B2C marketing efforts, which were unprofitable. We tried a lot of different approaches to increase the efficiency of that, but that wasn't working. So in one day, we had a strategic discussion with the founders. We stopped completely any marketing campaigns, any marketing spend in B2C, and focused solely on the B2B go-to-market approach, which was yielding the first fruits, but was apparently a long way to go there. But the key was that it was more sustainable, and it would allow us to sustain operations for longer and to grow at lower investments. So then another 6 months passed. The market was in deep decline, and we still don't know when the market will recover. And basically we understood another thing, that now we need to optimize for profitability. Like we needed to quickly find the ways to become profitable in the next 3 to 6 months, and at the same time extend the runway with the remaining funds for another like 12 to 18 months. And it helps you think about the expenses that you're making in a way that at early stage, you should only have the most critical expenses and not spend on anything else that is not critical for the company operations and for company growth. And the same approach was for organization. So we stopped like all hiring, and we only hired people when absolutely necessary, when we couldn't do that with an existing team, and also when we saw that each additional person that we are hiring is bringing additional revenue. So we saw a clear link between new people and new revenue that the company would generate or wouldn't otherwise generate without those people. So to quickly sum up, like how I see the fundraising, like here you can see the table, how I look at early stage financing. Like usually it's pre-seed, which can be skipped, followed by seed round, and then there is a proper round A when you found a product market fit and you have the ability to scale sustainably, organically. Yeah. So basically, to illustrate round A, like one of the investors told me a good example. So basically, the prior round A period, you can think of yourself pushing the stone, a big stone, to the mountain. Basically, a round A, so you are below the stone and you're pushing the stone up, and it's very hard. And then the round A is when you reach the tip of the mountain and you now start to go down on another side, and basically you are now in front of the stone and you have to figure out how not to be killed by the stone, basically. So the key considerations to sum up what I said, it's important to optimize for a long runway. Typically for pre-seed or seed rounds, I would think of 12 to 18 months. For round A and bigger seed rounds, I would think of 24 to 36 months. And I would aim for early profitability. So when you're just thinking, you have this idea about a startup, or you're very early on scoping the idea or started building your product, that's time when you should think, okay, when is this getting profitable? When is this getting sustainable? And you should have this milestones that are not too far in the future, that are not years away from the start, where you can see how you can become profitable at an adequate scale, not requiring millions or tens of millions of customers to break even. And now speaking about the fundraising process, in the beginning, when I was fundraising, like I thought of fundraising as something, as kind of like networking opportunity where you speak to a bunch of funds, they write you a check and you close a round. But basically, fundraising is more similar to regular sales process. So if you want, especially in today's landscape, if you want to raise funds, be prepared to have a long list of at least a few hundred leads. So like 300-400 investors in your list that you're going to reach. Understand your investors, so know the landscape. Who are the angels? Who are the funds in your market? Who are tier 1 funds, tier 2, tier 3 funds, and so on. Accelerators, connectors, and so on. Then you should construct a proper pipeline, like similar to a sales CRM, a structured funnel that you would navigate like a proper sales process. 3, prepare materials. Okay, prepare pitch, prepare marketing materials, product demo, financial materials, like have cap table available, have financial model, unit economics, and anything that investors might ask. Be prepared for Q&A. Then it's very hard to fundraise through cold calling. Yes, like even if you have a very bright idea, a great team, like it's usually done through warm intros. So you have a list of hundreds of investors, to at least 50 plus of them you should find warm interest to. So through your network, former colleagues, through your friends, through your LinkedIn connections. Anyway, like try to find someone to introduce you to those investors. Don't go just cold calling or sending cold emails. Like historically, or like in my experience, in many of my colleagues' experience, that has low to zero conversion. And finally, fundraising and communication with investors, it's a continuous process. Even if somebody decided not to invest in your startup at this stage, at the stage of, I don't know, idea, at the stage of seed, but they showed interest in what you're doing, keep them in contact. Put them in your investor CRM and keep sending them regular updates, regular communications, at least every quarter, every 6 months, and invite them for a conversation every now and then. Invite them to participate in your next rounds, and keep this pipeline of warm investors. So some of the cold investors this way can become warm investors if you just keep being there on the radar. Yeah, finally, I mentioned most of this. Being conscious of time. Let me move straight to Q&A and ask you if you guys have questions or want to ask some details on the stuff that I mentioned. You can drop your questions in chat or come off mute and ask a question. I mean, this one. Yeah, basically here I wanted to say that like how to approach starting to pitch if you haven't done this previously. So first, master your pitch. Like, know it really well so that you don't need to read from the paper or from slides. Start by pitching to what I call cold contact. So to, I don't know, to your friends or to investors who, like, don't start with high potential investors who you think have high potential to invest in your startup. Start with professionals who are less likely to invest in you. Like, let's say you're building an edtech startup. You have a friend who is an investor in real estate. Like, pitch to them. They're still an investor. They can give you important tips. Have a CRM, a long list of many names, like 200, 300. I think it's the least amount that you should have if you're looking at raising a proper round, hundreds of thousands, more than $500,000, and so on. And also for networking, it makes a lot of sense to participate in different accelerators, events, conferences, and so Okay, let me read question from Pierre. I like the 200, 300 people in the series mentioned. It reveals that the final. Okay. Yeah, okay, not a question. Thank you. Talked about finance docs that should be available for approaching it. Could you list them? That would be super helpful. Yeah, sure. So when I prepare a data room for investors, in financing folder, I put first cap table. That's capitalization table. It basically, like you can find, you can easily find a template on the internet. It's a table that states all the founders and their shares in the company. So who owns the company and by what share? So that's first, cap table. Financial model, which would be usually a benchmark is 5-year financial model. 3, ideally, like those 2 are essential, absolutely essential. Then ideally, you should have unit economics. That's helpful if you already tried selling something, or at least your projections, how you think of unit economics and lifetime value that you're going to get from a client. And yeah, then like as you're further down the line, like I, for example, also send on demand, I send the budget, like current year budget of our company and historical data. But yeah, I think those are the key metrics. Yeah, so there is a question about market size slide, why it could be optional. So look, yeah, slide number 6 here. So what I mean here, like, let me step back for a second. So first of all, of course, for every investor, when evaluating any startup, market plays a key role. So it's important for investor to understand that there is a big market, big opportunity that the startup can capture. Now, sometimes the market is less obvious, and it could be a new market, it could be a complicated market, it could be a niche market. Then you definitely need a separate slide for market size to explain, like, here's how the market is derived. And the way I would approach that, I put a formula out there, like very illustrative formula. So here's the total number of addressable market. Here's like a benchmark, like for example, let's say in education, there's 1 billion people that study at school, students. There's then a benchmark, like 17% of parents that pay for out-of-school studies. There is an average bill of, let's say, $100 per month that an average parent spends for such activities. And then you derive, like, you write this clear formula and you derive at your market potential. When I said the separate slide for market size is can be not necessary in some points, is when I refer to, like, when you're pitching to professional investors that are specializing in your field, and you have an understanding that they clearly know this niche where you're playing, you can just put, not on a separate slide, but include it in, let's say, problem definition. That's how we do it. We just put out there in problem definition, like, there is this gap, there is this gap, and you know what? There is 50 billion that the federal budget is spending to support this kind of program. And that's the market size. So we don't have a separate slide for market size. We just have it on one of the slides. That's what I meant. But of course, it's very important that your investor understands the market you're playing on and its size. If you think that investor already understands that, you can save the slide. If not, you should definitely include it. Okay, so we have MVP ready. We are with an incubator as of now. Our pitch deck is also ready. Did some cold pitches, but not able to figure out what really investors will look for in a startup when pitching to raise pre-seed funds. Okay, let's think here. So I think, like, I don't know your specific startup, but the way I would approach it, like, you can't know that until you go out there and you pitch it to at least, I don't know, 20, 30 investors. And you start seeing a picture, okay, why are they interested or not interested? What helps me personally when I find myself stuck after, I don't know, a dozen of pitches and nobody seems to be continuing to be wanting to continue the conversation, I found it helpful to, at the end of the pitch, ask an investor a question. What do you think about the pitch? What are the factors that you're thinking right now that would hold you off investing right now? And also, like, what could, what additional information could help you make that investment decision? And that helps drive insights from an investor, because sometimes they can just silently say, you know, yeah, like, you guys look cool, a great team, yeah, thank you, goodbye, and never come back. But if you prompt them by asking this question, they will explain, yeah, you know, like, good here and there, but I'm not convinced with this. If only you had achieved, I don't know, this, then I would invest straight away. And that helps a lot, especially when you ask a number of investors that question and you see a pattern emerging. It helps you very much to then plan some goals that you need to raise funding more successful. I hope that helps. Oh, okay, we have more questions here from Nori. Great lecture, thank you. When you spoke about launching the MVP quickly and gathering feedback, could you elaborate on the specific types of feedback to seek and the best methods to acquire? Great question. So there's multiple touch points where you can gather feedback. Okay, so at the stage of prototype, for example, like, the prototype should go together with a questionnaire for the interviewee or for the tester of a prototype. So you give them the specific questions, like, was it easy for you to log in to the platform? Was it intuitive for you? Try do this with the prototype. Was it easy to do this task? why wasn't it like, and like engage in a conversation. Like when you already have a product and you gather feedback based on customers, it's important that when you launch a product, you also have recording. Yes, I think we'll publish the recording. Yes. Yeah. So when you're launching a product already to the client, try to come up with the analytics, at least a very basic one that would help you understand like what works in your product or what not. So, for example, for us, like we have educational courses, so we have problems that students are solving, projects that they're doing. So we we look at different metrics, like how much time they spend on specific material. Okay, is it more than the time that we projected that they would spend or less? Like, was the material, and like that's the proxy for us like to understand whether the material was easy to comprehend or not. Then we'll look at the problems that they were solving. Like, did they solve it right? Like, how many of the clients got it right? Like, was it too hard or too easy? There's like we'll look at some technical, potential technical issues, like did the students connect on time? How much time it took them, like from the moment they entered the page, their personal page, personal dashboard, to the moment when they joined the lesson. Okay, and we try to understand, okay, was it hard to join or not, and stuff like so. We think of like what is valuable for us to understand how properly the platform functions, and we try to set up monitoring of those features in advance so that we can collect that. But apart from that, yeah, like very simple thing is to have a survey, a questionnaire. So for example, we still do, at the end of every lesson, we have a 4-question questionnaire. And we ask, like those could be, the questions could be customized, but we ask like, was the lesson interesting to you? Did you like the teacher and how they presented the material? Did you have any technical issues? And so on. So basically the simplest thing is just to ask your customer. And you can either incorporate that on the platform, like we do. For example, like there is a questionnaire at the end of the lesson, or you can simply, after you have a critical amount of clients that used your product, you can send them a questionnaire. I don't know, you can send it to 1,000 or 100 clients, 10 of them will fill it out, or 15 of them. You can offer something, some benefits for them to fill it out, some non-monetary benefits or discount or something, because it's very valuable to connect that feedback. And you can send them a proper questionnaire, ask closed and open questions, and so on. Okay, another question about how you valued your startup for investors. What is your future plans for your firm? In any way, investors control the firm for speed profit. Yeah. Yeah. So valuation is very tricky for early stages. And like, to be frank, in the end, it gets down to how well you can defend some number that you are presenting to investor. Apart from that, like that's in the end like what it gets to. Okay, you have like there could be different metrics on the market, different benchmarks, but if you as a founder, like, you have the strongest opinion about your product, you know it the best, so you go there. If you think that your startup is worth 10 million, you can defend that to the investor. They will invest at 10 million. Some objective parameters are, of course, multiples and multiples of comparable companies. So there's like, in most of the industries, there's a lot of different startups. For example, in edtech, there's a lot of startups. So you take a bunch of those as example that recently raised the same type of funding, let's say seed funding or round A funding, and you benchmark against them. Yeah, so if there's, I don't know, 3 companies somewhat similar to you or close to you in some sense, and they raise that valuation of 10 million, then why you should be worth less? So yeah, usually like there's an average or something, but yeah. But of course, there's a lot of nuances to each specific startup, and you can always defend your point, unless it's probably too off from the market. But I think like any reasonable valuation can be defended if you have strong position about that. Another thing to say here, like I had this slide. So when I think of these stages, pre-seed, seed, round A, here's the potential valuations that I'm thinking. So basically, when you're at the stage of you just have an idea, usually in established markets, by established markets, I don't mean, for example, crypto, because in crypto, like, you can have crazy valuations at idea level. I've heard of startups that raise at 20 and 50 million without having any MVP or anything. So, but let's take more established VC markets. Usually when you're at idea level, it's from $500,000 to $1 million. When you have a product, it adds probably a working product, another $500,000. If you have revenue, any revenue, it adds probably another like $500,000. If you have predictable and growing revenue, that adds a lot, like $1 million or $2 million on top. If you're a seed company with revenue like 50K plus per month, I can easily see how you can raise at 5, 7, 10 million valuation. Yeah. But again, it depends on a lot of factors. And yeah. So for my firm, the plan is to grow profitably for the next year. And if the market conditions are right, if the valuations on the market are right, and we can defend good valuation for round A, we would be doing round A in a year from now. As for investors' role, yes, like, you should be very cautious in the beginning, not to dilute your share too much. So not to sell too much of the company at early stages. Usually a good benchmark is for a seed round of, let's say, 500K plus, the good benchmark would be around 10% of the company you sell for 500K at seed round. For a bigger round, let's say it's a bigger seed round, like 2 mil or more, then 15 to 20, 10 to 20 could be an option. And for round A, a typical benchmark is 20%, give or take a few percent points. So if investors gain too much control, and they can gain control not only through acquiring big share of the company, but they can also negotiate a lot of restricting rights, like veto rights on different stuff, like, for example, veto rights on the next investments, veto right on CEO change, on leadership change, like veto right on the budget, veto right basically on anything. So you should be very cautious when negotiating terms with investors, not to give too much control, so that doesn't limit your, in any way, your ability to lead the company and to grow the company in the future and to make decisions. We are at time here. If there are no more questions, I'd like to wrap up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. If you have any more questions or you wanted to ask something else, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, to reach out there, or to write at the page of this conference. There's a Q&A section. You can write me there, and I'll be happy to chat. Thank you all very much. Have a good rest of the day. Goodbye.